that does seem to be the direction they're going. And, you know, we've got another problem. And the problem is that some of what's being pushed right now, whether we know it's true or not, from the likes of like Candace Owens and others, is that Charlie Kirk was somehow secretly just about to turn against Israel. And he was going to all of a sudden, you know, be anti-genocide out of nowhere, you know, and in his gut, he was having problems. Now, I don't know if there was a foreign entity involved in this. I'm not saying there couldn't possibly be. We don't know yet, right? There's not enough information, but we do know that Netanyahu tweeted right after Charlie Kirk was shot that he was a supporter of Israel. We do know that just the day before he was shot, he released an interview on the Charlie Kirk show with Ben Shapiro where they're whitewashing Israel's crimes. Like, he was laying up the questions, which almost sounds like people are asking questions like this. What do you think, Ben? You think that's him questioning the genocide? You think that's him questioning Israel? Or do you think that that's him throwing out softballs to Ben Shapiro to then knock down some of what his audience and Ben Shapiro's audience are now, because 70% of the country is against this genocide and want to stop funding Israel? They know that they're losing people over this. Do you really think he was questioning that? I mean, I have a clip here, a short clip from Noah Tishby, who is a known mouthpiece for Israel, just sending all the love for Charlie Kirk and his unfettered support for Israel. You want to take a listen to this really quick, and then
I'm very curious because I actually have not laid eyes on this video yet, so
okay. I'm interested to hear your analysis afterward.
Let's roll it.
I think Bibi Netanyahu is correct in everything that he said about Charlie Kirk. And one of the things that is important for us to understand is that Charlie, as a Christian man, had no confusion about the indigeneity of the Jewish people to the land of Israel. And as a great man, he had no confusion as to who's right and who's wrong in the Middle East. There are two sides in the Middle East. One side is on the side of modernity and progress and human rights and liberty, and the other side is on the side of jihadism. And you can actually divide the Middle East based on this parameter and this prism. One side is the good side, and that is Israel. The other side is the bad side, and that is jihadism. That is Hamas.
You know, Israel's make for some of the best pretendians.
Indigeneity. I knew that would stick out to you. It's one of the reasons I chose this clip.
Yeah, I mean, the level of hypocrisy there is just continuous. You are not indigenous to these lands, and you know, I'm glad that you rolled this out because, you know, like you said, Candace Owens and others are saying, you know, he was stoically against, you know, he was on a spiritual journey as it was described. That spiritual journey was to further his hatred for Muslims, for Palestinians, to further the narratives and continue them as they were intended to be continued to serve oligarchy. This clip, you know, just like his death is being used, these people are just like his death are being used to perpetuate this notion that he was against the status quo. He wasn't. Like we stated, we don't know what he was assassinated for. We just, you know, we know that they're utilizing this moment in time to, you know, steamroll the agenda that has always been clear. And we'll be getting into how this is connected to, you know, the broligarchy. You know, we'll be getting into another episode. But again, the level of dehumanization now. You said, you know, you brought up that Netanyahu, you know, was one of the first to give his said condolences and say that he was a stoic admirer of Israel. I also find it funny too that the Jerusalem Post was the first to report this, that he was even shot, with all of the localized news that was there present that day. I'll let people do what they will with that. This was a planned agenda from the get when the assassination happened, for them to make sure that whatever people were spinning, that he was, he was pro-Palestinian. No, he wasn't. In his board of trustees, they show it. The administration that he helped get into office showed it as well. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And
sorry.
Oh, no. We can hear it in Charlie Kirk's own words. We have a clip from him talking about what he thinks of the destruction in Gaza.
So, it's funny. I used to say that, hey, if you as a gay person would go to Gaza, they'd throw you off of tall buildings, right? Now they don't have any tall buildings left, so I don't...
When you mess with the bull, you get the horns.
Is that too soon? I'm sorry. Maybe you shouldn't kill Jews, stupid Muslims.
He's all I like that. I like that.
Where was I? So, yeah.
He tries to throw a little Ryan Reynolds comedic spin at the end, and I'm one for catching certain things like that, but the fact that you one perpetuated a lie that I would classify as a lie. I have Palestinian comrades that are from the LGBTQ community, some of which are actually in Gaza right now, unfortunately. The level that he reaches, stooping that low, to make fun of people that are actively right now being evaporated is there is no signs of humanity there for me at that point, because these are innocent people that have been subjugated to oppression and famine, labeled a catastrophe, a Nakba. So.
Yep. And 2 weeks ago, what he tweeted out? He tweeted out saying that children that their arms and legs have been amputated or that need help and assistance should not be allowed in the United States because they're Muslim people. Him and Laura Loomer made a huge deal of it, to the point that the administration is now denying visas to. So, he was a mouthpiece essentially for the administration. Him and Laura Loomer came out of the gate with this. And they both advocated that, children shouldn't be, advocated against children getting medical treatment from Gaza, that their arms and legs were blown off with bombs that we've provided.
And hundreds of organizations that have documented this, mind you, that have documented the horrific nature of the war that has been inflicted by oligarchy. It's not something for me that I'm willing to allow people to just make fun of like that. That was disgusting to even have to watch. You're making fun of innocent people that have no means other than the Wi-Fi that was just recently disconnected and then turned back on to get what's needed. We have comrades, colleagues of ours that we know that are there. I want to shout out, if we can, our comrade Sammy, who does on the ground reporting on TikTok, and he does not come for coins. He comes to give the truth. He comes to tell the truth when he has access to it, and I have much love and support for him. And it's getting to a point now where this is where I'll pass this over to you, Zay, where it's getting hard to tell the truth, even with all of this dehumanization. Having to witness people like Sammy go through what they're going through and still have the strength to come on a TikTok live for 40 minutes, half the time, for hours, and give us the truth.
With journalists being directly targeted every single day. More than 200 journalists, more than 240 journalists have been killed in Gaza. And now 12 journalists were killed in Yemen when Israel struck 2 newsrooms directly. And journalists, it's it's similar. It has an echoes of what's happening now with the silencing of journalists here. With, I mean, who cares about Jimmy Kimmel, really? But with Jimmy Kimmel being deplatformed, for instance, to shut him up, with Trump threatening college campuses to remove their federal funding if they don't message in the way that he wants. It pales in comparison in a way to those journalists being killed. I'm not trying to false equivocate here. However, it echoes. It's an echo of the imperial boomerang.
I completely agree. And you know, we have this is not going to stop what TPUSA created. And I think we have a set of things to roll out for the viewers that gets us to understand that, one, through the words of Erica Kirk, and two, through the actions of people that have facilitated this movement, that have glorified this movement. It is grotesque, and I think this for me was probably the bigger part of the sit down with you in this first episode that I was, most engaged with, because this is where they're going to invoke the agenda very swiftly, very, very swiftly. Uh, eh, these the level of, and we're gonna get to the clips in a minute of
Yeah,
Erica.
we're going to lay out where
Yeah.
already hinted at where this is heading when we talked about Kent State, but we're going to get into where this is heading, and we're going to show quotes from her, from Donald Trump. We've got a quote from we already showed a quote from JD Vance and Matthew Miller on this, but then another quote from JD Vance where he talks directly about what to do next. We've got a quote from Mike Johnson. So you can hear it directly from House Speaker Mike Johnson. So you can hear it directly from the mouth of those who are calling for this insanity. Yeah.
It's wild. And first, starting off with the clips with Erica, I think we need to start off with, because they use her as a form of a spearhead, being TPUSA was the spearhead for this legislation that they have been rolling out, has been advocating for as well. This woman is the female counterpart to his hatred. There's no denying
Serena
that.
Joy Gray. Serena Joy Gray. I'm sorry. A Serena Joy. I'm sorry,
Serena
Brianna.
Joy.
She's not Brianna Joy Gray, who's a badass. She is a Serena Joy.
Yeah, she is fully aware of this moment, the moment that's at hand, and is working with the oligarchical establishment to make sure that, one, this movement stays on course, but they make it very clear by going to statistics. 32,000 new people have joined us. This is, I put it this way.
Now the board of directors just voted her in as the CEO of TPUSA. So much for meritocracy. I wonder how the guys feel about that. Always talking about meritocracy. They were always talking about meritocracy, but the entire Trump administration are Trump's friends. I mean, we have Ed McMahon's wife now. Not Ed McMahon, Vince McMahon's wife. I can't get names right today. Vince McMahon's wife is now heading up the Department of Education. No experience in that. We can name every single department. It's some crony. And now the head of TPUSA is Charlie Kirk's wife. It was just kind of gifted to her. So yeah.
Yeah, but before we cut to this clip, I just had to say something that was very funny. I think I might actually save it, because it ties into when they see the level of just evilness that's in this woman's eyes. And I mean, so much so that she can't cry physically for her own husband. It's beyond fake tears. I think I seen Candace Owens cry more for Charlie Kirk than I seen his own wife. And if you want to know what my mind is, or where my mind is headed to, just watch all seasons of Scandal, and you'll know exactly what I'm alluding to. This is not a woman that I would be safe around. I'm sorry, I would not, with the level of just the level of evilness. Level of evil.
I'm worried because now it's a whitewashed, blonde-haired, blue-eyed representation of TPUSA.
Yep.
And that's scary. And also a fake guise of feminism when they're very much like against female independence. The irony of an organization that has, you know, lobbied and advocated for women to stay in the kitchen, and for even the 19th Amendment. Some folks at TPUSA and even Charlie Kirk have gone as far to argue that the 19th Amendment should possibly be repealed. And now she's going to work for she's going to lead one of the largest political. And that's why I said she reminds me of Serena Joy, who in Handmaid's Tale wrote a book, led the movement, and then by the time that everything, if you guys have ever watched the series, I've read the book, but this was in the series, she wasn't allowed to read. She couldn't even read the Bible. She wasn't allowed to write. So she saw her dream fulfilled, but then her dream fulfilled meant that her rights were completely eroded. So, but we can take a listen and think about that.
Quite a few clips.
Yeah, we have two clips. We'll watch the first one and we'll talk about it a little bit, and then we'll watch this. The second one actually dispels this myth that her children were there.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
You have no idea the fire that you have ignited within this wife. The cries of this widow will echo around the world like a battle cry. To everyone listening tonight across America, the movement my husband built will not die. It won't. I refuse to let that happen. It will not die. All of us will refuse to let that happen. No one will ever forget my husband's name, and I will make sure of it. It will become stronger, bolder, louder, and greater than ever. My husband's mission will not end, not even for a moment.
You know, I was thinking, you know, if Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think her name is, if she were to just act accordingly as she always does with the right has their version of a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Ghidorah. For those that don't know, Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. I mean, this woman mimics the book Misery. Just she's now in charge of a Nazi cult. You know, the level of evilness that's in this woman's eyes, I cannot get past, because it shows that, and not my words, but Charlie Kirk, he said that he was a moderate compared to his wife. So she stoically believed, which is why I think that your example, or you know, example of who she might be from a cinema perspective, is more valid. Is more valid because you know, it's a foreshadowing of how they're going to potentially treat her and how she's going to allow that treatment to be rolled out for other women as well.
Yeah, and I think that when it comes to this, you know, the killing of Charlie Kirk, the assassination of Charlie Kirk has emboldened TPUSA. It's going to make it stronger. And it is whitewashing, not only the whitewashing and the dehumanization of his legacy, the normalizing of his hatred. There's so much that it seeded that it didn't benefit the left or the movement or that. So I don't, like I said, I don't even know who this guy was, but it definitely doesn't benefit us that he was killed. Not in that way. They're utilizing this. If you think TPUSA is going to go away, or you think that the movement is going to be slowed or stopped, you're wrong. They're going to find other mouthpieces, and they're already jockeying for who's going to be the mouthpiece. You know, Candace Owens is mad because, you know, Ben Shapiro was thinking about, you know, was talking about commandeering TPUSA, and she thought that she should be the leader. And then Erica Kirk was brought in as the CEO. They're all like pivoting. Michael Knowles, like all these guys are like pivoting to be in Charlie Kirk's position. And so it's fascinating to me but it's not going to slow. It's being used as an excuse to accelerate, to put the foot on the accelerator when we were already at full speed. It was like this has been like watching a train wreck somewhat in slow motion. And for people of poverty and for people that are of their best classes, we've seen it and we've felt it. And then it's now like colliding. It's coming to a head.
Yeah,
And I feel like for the
culminated.
last decade, I've been watching this train wreck in slow motion.
I think we all have been placed within a universe where House of Cards is a reality, where we see for our very eyes the
Only a
corruption.
lot dumber.
That part. It's like Idiocracy, but House of Cards. You
It's
know,
like the Idiocracy version of House of Cards. It's a great way to put it.
Yeah, it shows you the level of work that is going to need to be done, but it also shows you, one, you see her fake tears. I seen her fake tears. You know, the agenda was very clear in her eyes, you know, in her wording. You know, we're going to demonize, you know, the woke left, you know, as demonic LGBTQ two-spirit, you know, targeting our youth, you know, and we're going to further the hatred, you know, which again is emboldening this idea that this legislation needs to be rolled out in the manner that it is. It's demonizing all people, plain and simple, you know.
Especially anyone who calls themselves a socialist, a leftist, even Democrats, which are pretty much neocons this day. They're calling extremist. It's modern day McCarthyism.
So many examples that we could put and slap on this, like Frank's Red Hot Sauce, you know. You know, but one thing we can, you know, jump to in the clips that we have of Erica is she self-debunked a lie that has been perpetuated throughout media, and we've seen even some of our own colleagues, you know, make this mistake and have to correct themselves after, is that his children were in the crowd or that his wife was in the crowd, which was not true. She ended up having to fly back home to see her children. And she says this herself.
Let's take a listen.
When I got home last night, Gigi, our daughter, just ran into my arms. And I talked to her and she said, "Mommy, I missed you." I said, "I miss you too, baby." She goes, "Where's Daddy?" What do you tell a 3-year-old? She's 3. I said, "Baby, Daddy loves you so much. Don't you worry. He's on a work trip with Jesus, so he can afford your blueberry budget." And my goodness, am I so humbled to witness, Charlie, you alongside Jesus right now, doing what you always want to do, baby. Making heaven crowded, right? That's what it's all about. Making heaven crowded.
Daddy's on a work trip with Jesus to get you all of the blueberries that you want. No, I'm not gonna say anything to the child, but I will say to Erica, there is a song that you can refer to what's going on with your husband. I highly advise you to listen to a very good classic, AC/DC's Highway to Hell. There is there is no glorification in my part around these parts for
There was nothing
Nazis.
Christ-like about Charlie Kirk's work. Not for what I understand Christ to be. Anyway, not for me. Not for this person.
But they use this in a moment's time, or and to try and garner sympathy for Charlie. Now, I think that, you know, one of the most funniest things that has came out, but also the most disrespectful thing that has came out as after this, is the AI generated photos of Charlie Kirk meeting Malcolm X and meeting MLK, and that they somehow shared some deep rooted understanding with each other, and that Malcolm said, you know, "Welcome, my white brother, to heaven. This is a fallacy, but it also paints a very clear picture that they're willing to use Malcolm X's history. They're willing to use how he was martyred. Then they want to that now they want to acknowledge it, that he was he was martyred, that he was put down. No, don't try and equate what happened to Charlie Kirk to happen with Malcolm X. Charlie Kirk was shot in the jugular. Malcolm X was shot in front of his children 21 times. 10 buckshot pellets went into him, his arms, his legs, his chest. The level of again, dehumanization coupled with the trying to make someone feel or garner some support for somebody is it's a level of disgusting that I thought that I before in my life. Yeah, as we said, this I'm glad that you bring this up, Zaina. This is the exact photo that I'm talking about. Where and in what world would this happen? This is an individual that advocated for what could be classified as the devaluing and dehumanization of the people on the other side, like Malcolm X, were fighting so that they have rights. I'm just I'm just dumbfounded. I'm dumbfounded by it. The people even that call themselves leftists would go and generate an AI photo, that garners this level of disrespect. You're an all white boy, Charlie, or Mr. Kirk. This is wild. I just discovered Malcolm X was a member of the Nation of Islam rather than a Christian. We'll keep this in mind in the future. So you don't even know the history of these people, and you're out here making AI generated photos that completely distort history and distort people. Like even Charlie's legacy, he would never have shook the hand of Malcolm X,
Mm-hmm.
and Malcolm X would have never have shook the hand of Charlie Kirk. That's wild. How many of those photos did you see running down rampant on your page? And maybe it's just an algorithm thing. Oh, snap. And it doesn't end there. It does not end there. We have a couple clips that I was able to piece up. One would have been three. For those that don't know, and let me ask you this question, Zay.
Mm-hmm.
When has there ever been fireworks at a funeral or pyro?
I have never seen that.
For those that don't know, Charlie Kirk's funeral was held at State Farm, and every person who was announced to speak that day, which was yesterday, came out to pyrotechnics like it was WWE's WrestleMania.
That's crazy. That's nuts. That's nuts.
But the even more nuts
Like
thing
it's
that
the 4th of July.
Yeah, did you hear some of the stuff that was coming out? And I mean, this is like a genuine question because I didn't watch all of it. I watched only what I felt was, I actually was curious as to knowing like when this had ended, when it started. I thought when I had, been staying up, staying up early, staying up late, I went to sleep and woke up and it was still going, mind you. So this was like a concert that they held. This was like the CMA Awards meets a Nazi rally.
Yeah. I've only caught some snippets of it and some clips of some of the things that were said, but yeah, it's like a celebration. It's like Noah's Ark was just built.
We had individuals carrying crosses on their shoulders. I seen a video of some guy. I don't know if it was like props that they were just like clearing up, but people. It's just a level of
like the Passion of the Christ.
Like yeah, it was like holding like the Passion of the Christ. But what spoke wonders to me was the truth came out through Trump's rhetoric. That Charlie Kirk wasn't just no debate bro. He was someone who helped legislate and demonize individuals of color and then invoked what was and going back to what you said, like what we did watch.
Mm-hmm.
I watched Nazi plagiarism, by Stephen Miller, literally telling people that, the blood and the soil, it's this is a fight for all. This is a fight for, for us of the spirit. He awakened all of us. It oddly reminiscent Berlin, Germany. The only thing we don't have are swastikas hanging from pillar to pillar the way that they were. And then Trump says what he says here in these clips, and I just think that it paints the picture that me and you wanted people to see, which was the truth. And the truth doesn't need to be painted; it just needs to be identified.
You want to take a gander
Take
at
again.
some of the most fascistic rhetoric we've ever heard from an American president. So, and that says a lot.
It does. It does. Being that the system is already counter-revolutionary and is already rooted in these ideologies, it's like how much more fascist can you get?
Trump's gonna tell us here, so we'll
Yep.
take a listen.
And Charlie didn't just bring young people into the movement. All of a sudden, it started to grow by leaps and bounds. By 2024, we won more young people than any Republican candidate in the history of our country, including, for the first time, a majority of males under 30. Can you believe it? Remember when Republican presidential candidates would get 4%? No, we did unbelievably with young people. And he was a big, big factor. Unbelievable. But he made me work for it. Sir, you have to make a speech here. You have to make a speech there. But we did it, and we won, and our country is doing unbelievably well now. We had a country that was dead 1 year ago, and now we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. And Charlie helped us make it that. One of the great people. But through it all, the core of Charlie's message and his basic method never changed. It never really changed. He stayed the same person also.
Stayed the same person also. What does that say to you, Zay?
We were a shit country, but now we're great.
Now we're wonderful. Now we're really turning the tide, on the amount of evilness that we have been able to do and will continue to do. Does this prove that Charlie was a good person, Zaina?
No, but it does prove that Charlie had influence. What Trump is saying about male voters is true. And now the turnout, when you start looking at the turnout, the actual turnout in numbers, the turnout for this election was pretty shitty pretty not great compared to, per capita turnout in previous elections. But it is true that there were a lot of white males that are being red-pilled, that are buying into Trump's rhetoric, especially white guys. And they, people make claims about the Hispanic community and the Black community. But then again, you have to look at turnout. But yeah, no, it is true that the whole red-pilled movement, the manosphere, Christian nationalism, Turning Point USA was on the cusp of this from its founding in 2012. It has been, and it is it was a force. And it is true that Charlie Kirk had unwavering support for Donald Trump and was a catalyst for his win in 2024.
And Trump alludes to that in this next clip too, by basically saying, that he won elections, meaning not just the election, but elections. So this also puts us in a position to really see Charlie Kirk for what he was, is that he was conservatives' greatest lobbyist. He was, if we're looking at it from that perspective, yes, he was. He was a great manipulator. He was not a great debater. He was a great manipulator, and he used that to that part. used it to his advantage and used it to the oligarchy's advantage as well. And Trump literally says it. He literally says it. He won us the election. He won elections.
We'll take a listen.
Yeah.
Winning, and he was winning big. He was taking over college campuses, colleges that had, in theory, only very liberal, or as they like to say, progressive. I call them liberal, but they like to call themselves, because such a beautiful word, progressive. They're the opposite of progressive, if you think about it. But they were really nasty, and he would go into these colleges. All of a sudden, within 2 years, 3 years, they turned into bastions of conservatism. It was really quite amazing to see. They lied about him because they did not want you to listen to him or to learn from him, because what he was talking about and even preaching made so much sense. Everywhere he went, he won the debates, he won the hearts, he won the minds, and yes, he won the elections for people. He helped us, he helped other people. We won the biggest election.
He helped us, he helped other people. He helped win the 2016 election too, because he's helped win elections across the country. He supported Marjorie Taylor Greene. He supported Matt Gaetz. Some of the most vile members of Congress, Turning Point USA didn't directly endorse because they're a 501c3. Or a 501c4, but they did. They're a political organization, but they did have these people speak at their Turning Points conventions, which we'll dig into in the next show that we do, and we'll show clips from some of these massive conventions that Turning Points USA would have. And Turning Points USA is a think tank that literally drafts legislation similar to the Heritage Foundation or similar to ALEC, which ALEC has now lost some steam and being replaced by this new ultra-fascist, outwardly facing neo-Nazi rhetoric from Turning Points USA and neo-Nazi policies. Extremism, because honestly, Heritage Foundation is horrible crony capitalism, marginalization of people, trickle down Reaganite economics. But Turning Point USA was even a new beast compared to that. It was a new type of Christofascism. It was new aged Christofascism that literally wants to take us back to the Gilded Age.
I think we could probably agree that it was old money ideas with new money aspirations. If you could, Zay, because I'm not too familiar with 501c, 501(4). I know we're going to get into this in the second episode, but could you just briefly, for me especially, get us to understand why they specifically chose as TPUSA this particular subset of a nonprofit that essentially, makes something very legal that should not be legal, if you know what I mean, which is the unnaming of donors. What would that be classified as, Zaina?
And to be clear, like a 501c3, which is what it was, it's a nonprofit organization, but it was a political organization. So the donors, you don't have to disclose them like you do if you're a federal political action committee, and a political action committee can directly work with, and this is the tax filing status that we're talking about. You can directly work with and donate to candidates. And then you've got super PACs, which is something different, and TPUSA did have a super PAC for a while, and we could talk about that. Which doesn't have to disclose donors. So yeah, you don't have to disclose your donor base if you're a 501c3. You just have to report your donors, or that you just have to report the amounts, and you have to report the names to the Treasury, but you don't have to report it publicly. It's your choice whether or not to. So we know that Turning Point USA has amassed massive more than hundreds of millions of dollars, and increasingly year after year, even more and more money. And even though they don't directly endorse candidates, which I think that there's a I feel like they've crossed that line with their massive support of outward support of Donald Trump, wearing MAGA hats at rallies, like having merch for a candidate. So you could question, why wasn't the Federal Reserve, or not the Federal Reserve, the drawing a blank. Why did they not get in trouble for their tax status? Why were they not held accountable for literally everything but releasing a statement of endorsement for these candidates, having them speak at events? They obviously weren't bipartisan organization. They weren't a nonpartisan organization, and you're supposed to be if you have this status. But what it describes here is the organization's mission is to identify, educate, train, and organize students to promote the principles of fiscal responsibility, free markets, and limited government. The irony, because it's definitely not limited government by any stretch of the means. I mean, it's fascist governments are not limited. Governments that, control what college campuses teach, or, are doxing, have lists to dox teachers and professors if they teach about racism, or they, hold certain ideologies, especially college professors, or if they don't teach U.S. history in the way that they want. Doesn't really sound like limited government to me, or that supports Trump sending in National Guard, bypassing gubernatorial and state powers. But yeah, so that's the difference. You can have a political action committee. Turning Points USA, their main large organization, was not a political action committee. It was a 501c3, as stated here at the bottom of their website. But I will show this really quick, and this is something you touched on in one of your videos that I know you did recently. 3,500 plus schools represented, 2,000 plus student groups, 800 plus faith groups, and then some of the movements that's listed up here. Blexit. We'll get into what Blexit is. It's the thing that Candace Owens runs. It's like black exit from the Democratic Party. Ooh. Which is absolutely crazy. So Blexit is crazy. It's like a true black person would be a capitalist.
It's like the second stage to foundational Black Americanism, which is not something that you should subscribe to if you are from the African diaspora. Yeah, I completely agree. This is like the Oxford Union of of Black conservatism. It is the highest esteemed within the grasp of Turning Point USA. I'll keep that short.
And then they've got a whole wing, Turning Points Education. Turning Points Education is a division of Turning Points, is dedicated to reclaiming the education of our children, reviving the virtuous education focused on truth, goodness, and beauty, and restoring God as the foundation of education. So what all of this is them pushing 5C schools, which are Christian schools, and voucher programs, and private schools. So defunding of our public school system, defunding of the Department of Education. And as you can see, it's huge. It's huge. They've got schools. Emphasis on seeding 5C schools, Christian, classical, conservative, collaborative, and
Lord Jesus. Lord Jesus. I mean, they're very overt with it.
Tip of the iceberg. And we'll get into their two doxing websites that's on here under their education wing when we do our next video, because in here it also has like resources, and under the resources is where you can find out how you can dox your teachers, and how you can put them on a list, and entire admins.
Yeah, no,
entire
I
school boards.
having to for 4 days Zaina, scroll down that website, look at all the stuff that they overtly talk about. This is not a debate club by any stretch. This is not. This is the rolling out of education, legislation, ideology, and manipulation encompassed into one, and they have dark money attached to it. And I just want to say one thank you for breaking that down. You know, the dark money and how it's basically legal. You know, they don't have, you know, they can accept it and they don't have to disclose who's paying for it. And I think that's been one of the biggest things for us as of late in this investigation of TPUSA is trying to find out where the dark money really is coming from. And you know, all we can really rely on is what has been put in front of us.
And their works.
Yeah,
What are they doing?
yeah.
But they're already arresting people. You know, we have a tweet from Governor Greg Abbott where he's celebrating a woman, Governor Greg Abbott of Texas, where he's celebrating a woman being arrested here at Texas Tech, who was quote unquote celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, according to him. Or mocking Charlie Kirk's death. And she was. But she has a right to do that on college campuses. I thought that Charlie Kirk said that hate speech is free speech and that we should be able to say anything we want on college campuses. But he never meant that. He meant that they, the fascists, can say anything they want on college campuses. And Greg Abbott says, definitely picked the wrong school to taunt the death of Charlie Kirk. Thanks, Texas Tech. And then he says, this is what happened to the person who is mocking Charlie Kirk's assassination at Texas Tech. FAFO, so mature for a governor to tweet this out. But and as you notice, what's the color of this lovely lady's skin?
She's from the African diaspora, and you know, I'm hoping someone put the bail fund to be able to get this beautiful young woman out of, you know, jail. Hope that was met. I'm glad that you bring that up because not surprising, you know, Abbott has consistently shown us, you know, that he's willing and able to will himself in and even up a staircase for oligarchy. Uh, you know, his state currently right now is being overturned by a bunch of fascists that have staked claim to Austin, Texas, oligarchical entities and, you know, technocrats like Elon Musk have, you know, set up shop there. Bill Gates intends to do the same exact thing. You know, it's not surprising. This is also coming from a man who, again, put human Beyblades in the Rio Grande, meaning that he actively targeted people who were just seeking asylum from the oppression that they've been inflicted.
Or anyone who might go into the river.
That part, like you're telling me that people don't want to go for a swim?
I mean, it's bad enough, you know, at targeting migrants, but yeah, like anyone, you're gonna put blades in the river. Like, what the hell's wrong with you? And the fish and the wildlife, like it's an ecological disaster. What an asshole.
It's another level of inhumane. So you see how like that has been the term that we've used, you guys, the viewers, all throughout today, is inhumane, dehumanizing. It's like 1,000 ways to die, like that we're going through, but just 1,000 ways to be dehumanizing to people. And I think what people don't want to identify is, and I'll just say it, and not that no one else will say it, but it's fucking racist.
Yeah.
This is racism. This is racism.
It's white
You know?
nationalism, absolutely, 100%. It's birth of a nation, propaganda, and it is pervasive. It's like we're sitting in this is 1928.
And it's, you know, going back to what we said, they do not want to or want you to feel any type of way for true free speech, because we should be able to talk freely about Charlie Kirk. We should be able to say what we want about Charlie Kirk and not get any scrutiny about it being both two people of color on screen. We cannot keep allowing a system to tell us that we what we can and can't say. It goes back to, you know, like an individual like Yahya Sinwar. You know, you guys want us to be silent victims. You want the Palestinians to be silent victims. You want us here in the occupied territories to be silent victims. I cannot do that. I cannot do
And
that.
that's exactly what Mike Johnson says in a clip that I have of him. We also have a clip, which will be one of the last clips that we share, of what JD Vance's call to action. And then we're going to talk to you guys about some of the violence, potential violence that we have seen on campus and what Trump's next steps are. So
yeah.
do you want me to play that crazy video from Johnson?
I was going to say yes. And mind you, this is coming from a person who's potentially broken Grindr twice. So I just had to throw that out there.
Oh, Mike Johnson. That's hilarious. Keep that in mind while you're listening to this.
While you're listening to Mike Johnson, keep that in mind for you guys.
That's not helpful. That is not productive, and it leads to bad consequences. Leaders cannot call their political opponents Nazis and fascists and enemies of the state because they disagree with their policy priorities. I mean, this is something we should have learned in grade school. This type of language spurs on depraved people, deranged people who take that as a cue, and this.
What if they are Nazis, fascists, and enemies of the state? We're not allowed to say it?
But this is also coming from someone who demonized Democrats for not wanting to stand for I forgot what it was that they did in Congress, but it was like they were booing, and then he was like actively calling for all of them to be relieved of their duties.
They're all communist. Like communist is like their term that they use to demonize. Yeah.
But you see that do you see where like the term fascism, they don't want to be called what they are.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. They don't want to be called what they are. You're a fascist. Just live up to it. The same way that you should live up to the fact that you no longer have to be a closeted gay man. We all know who you are, Mike Johnson. You know?
Oh, you're a big triple Isaac.
Shoot, they might take my Twitter away. I don't care. But it's true. It's true. You know, these individuals, they love
fascism. And then what was the other thing that he said? He said Nazis.
Nazis, enemies of the state, and then demonize them for them being on the opposing side. Well, that's what you're doing right now. That's what Steve Miller essentially called for in his not just Nazi plagiarism, but also in his sit down, you know, with Aaron's Furniture and, you know, company. This is not cool. This is not cool.
I mean,
I'm hoping someone put
the first clip we played, and one of the reasons that was the first clip we played was with Matthew Miller and JD Vance. And I know it's been a little bit. We've been going live for a while, but that first clip that we played is really important because that set the stage. Everything else is gaslighting. So they can say all that stuff about the left wing. They can call Antifa a terrorist organization. They can say things about, you know, pro-Palestinian protesters, that they're all Hamas. And, you know, they can arrest Mahmoud Khalil and deport him. They can arrest a woman and deport her for writing an op-ed, an anti-genocide op-ed. They can do literal political violence. They can shoot Tortuguita. Police can shoot 19 holes into a Stop Cop City protester who was unarmed. The list goes on and on and on. We'd be here all day if we listed everything.
And they have such a history of glorifying, you know, violence. Daniel Penny, Tyler Rittenhouse. The glorification of these two individuals, you made them multimillionaires before they were 30.
Kyle Rittenhouse was a celebrity. Yeah.
Yes. You know, this dude has been masquerading around like a middle-aged man with his dog, you know, and a hat that only suits, you know, a person, you know, that's a character in King of the Hill. This is not like what world are we living in? It goes back to the dystopia.
The shooter of Trayvon Martin was glorified and glamorized.
Yes.
As well.
Or let's talk about
Charlie
Breonna
Kirk
Taylor's
himself made fun of Trayvon Martin's death. People were showing up to Turning Point USA events wearing hoodies and with bags of Skittle.
let's also not forget the fact that people made money via book sales off of Breonna Taylor's death. Like this is
Or murder.
they have, yeah, her murder. Yes, thank you for correcting me. Her murder. This is not a this is the normality of you know capitalism, of racialized capitalism. Fred Hampton said it best. Capitalism and racism can't coexist without each other, and that's what it
Mm-hmm.
needs right now. And Turning Point USA is spearheading, the racism. Going back to what Kirk said, in his own words, we have a surplus of racism, but not enough people to fulfill it. So what did he do? He fulfilled that. He fulfilled that racism. These people don't understand that the words that come out of their mouth are very Freudian. They say exactly what they mean and then try and
They
distort
do.
people
And he literally openly called for public executions. Literally.
of
A
himself.
leftist. Yeah.
In mind you, he was talking about gang violence and has always advocated that we needed, less stricter gun laws. He became the 427th person to die this year of gun violence.
That's right.
But to his narrative, what did he say? Zaynab, it's going to take a certain amount of sacrifices for us to keep these civil liberties. So, why are we
In
garnering
reference to a
sympathy
question about school shootings, nonetheless.
and I think it was around Uvalde.
Yes.
This is a school for which law enforcement only went in to get their own children. So in a world where we're told to rely on policy officers as people of color, nowhere to be seen. Nowhere to be seen. It's just a level of like I said, what episode of House of Cards are we in? Because I feel like it just doesn't add up. It just
Well, let's
doesn't add
take
up.
a listen to what J.D. Vance says that we need to do next. And remember, J.D. Vance hosted the first episode of Charlie Kirk's show after he was killed. So
Yes.
Civility. And there is no civility in the celebration of political assassination. Get involved. Get involved. Get involved. It's the best way to honor Charlie's legacy. Start a chapter of TPUSA or get involved in the one that already exists. If you're older, volunteer for your local party, write an op-ed in your local paper, run for office. I can't promise you this is going to be easy. I can't promise you that all of us will avoid Charlie's fate. I can't promise you that I will avoid Charlie's fate. But the best way to honor him is to shine the light of truth like a torch in the very darkest places. Go do it. We owe it to our friend to ensure that his killer is not just prosecuted but punished. And the worst punishment is not the death penalty, but the knowledge that Charlie's mission continues after he's gone. St. Paul tells us in the book of Ephesians to put on the full armor of God. Let all of us put on that armor and commit ourselves to that cause for which Charlie gave his life, to rebuild a united States of America, and to do it by telling the truth.
This is coming from a man who, there's nothing wrong with eyeliner. It's coming from a man who wore eyeliner and used to wear CCCP shirts, mind you. The level of indoctrination being told to the youth right now through that show that he's now co-hosting is, again, Hot Girl Summer 2026 is something that's very serious. It's not just a hot girl summer. It's a hot political summer. When JD Vance speaks, to people going out there and advocating for said free speech, what he's advocating for is for people to join, as I stated, conservative agendas that demonize them. So, this is not surprising to me. This is not surprising to me, like, at all whatsoever.
absolutely. He's saying go out there like seated. He's like, I don't know if anything, I don't know if you're going to come under the same fate, to keep that threat fresh But then when he talked about when he talked about carrying the torch forward, this is what I thought of.
Exactly.
These are the torches. Like the torches at Charlottesville when they said Jews will not replace us, when they said, it spewed blood and soil and marched down the streets of Charlottesville. And where were the flags half-mast for Heather Heyer, who was run over by a car?
Mm.
A protester that was run over by the car. And if people don't know, this was in 2017. The Charlottesville Unite the Right rally, where hundreds of neo-Nazis marched down the street with tiki torches. White nationalists.
But these are peace-loving people. These are these are God-fearing Christians. You know,
and that's who JD Vance is talking to. These are the people that he's talking to. 100%.
He's talking to also, you know,
he's talking to the kind of person that, you know, where's Trump's comments that there are good people on both sides in this instance. When Heather Heyer died, he said there are good people on both sides. There's no rhetoric to temper down any hate that's being sparked on the right wing, you know, where people are like, they look like pro wrestlers out there. They're like, brother, we're going to bring the Second World War. Bah! It's a new civil war for a new era. And then they're like, don't make fun of Charlie Kirk's death or we'll come to your house and we'll murder your entire family. And it's like, oh my God. Like, dude.
Invoking plagiarism too, and not a good plagiarism, Nazi plagiarism. You know, like
Nazi
this
plagiarism.
Is like the words that were coming out of Stephen Miller, the words that were coming out of JD Vance, out of you know, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of I mean, we already know who the Secretary of Defense is. He has that tattooed all over him, a Knight of Templar. You know, like these people have a clear agenda, and the agenda is to eradicate people that look like me and Zaina, people that look like you in the comment section, people that look like you in the live chat section. They do not want us to survive. They don't want us to grasp a thought of solidarity.
And they don't want the poor either. I mean, we saw the Fox News host talking about euthanizing homeless people. Well, Brian Kilmeade out here saying lethal injections be easier, right?
And we have all of this, you know, that has happened, and I feel like this brings us to the last bit of this episode, you know, where all of this we had to debunk in the midst of something tragic that has happened to two people in Mississippi, one of which we're going to highlight, you know, right now. While they wanted you to feel and garner sympathy for a Nazi, you know, Colin Kaepernick had to use his own money that the state was unwilling to do or did and decided to fabricate, decided to pay for an independent autopsy on a college student found hanged from a tree. For those that don't know, Trey Reed was hung. He did not hang himself. This is a call to action and to truth. And if you don't mind, I'm gonna pull this article up myself. I wanted to read a little bit of the article because, you know, we just had, you've been watching us, and I'm gonna try and stop slowing my cadence down. We just earlier today brung up Stephen A. Smith talking about how we should garner sympathy and support for Charlie Kirk and his family. Where has been Stephen A.'s support for Trey Reed?
Good question.
And I say that only because we have people from the sports world like Colin Kaepernick. For those that don't know, Colin Kaepernick took a stance against racism in the NFL to the point where it got him barred and banned from the NFL. And he's now been trying to work his way to get back into the NFL. I've given my personal thoughts on this, and they'll never give him a chance to play in the NFL because they paid him $1 billion not to. Now it's up to him to utilize that money as he's doing now, which I fucking thank him for, because I needed someone to come out and do this. The lying and the gaslighting coming out of Mississippi right now regarding not just this case, but also the other case as well, is very disgusting. And I think Colin Kaepernick has every intention to make sure that the truth comes out. We have here the DeMartravian Trey, as described, as named, Reed's family searches for answers surrounding his death. Former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick is hoping he can help provide them. Reed was 21, found dead hanging from a tree at Delta State University in Cleveland, Mississippi, and the county coroner and state examiner ruled it a suicide. No foul play is suspected, according to police, despite early outrage and serious allegations of his death. However, Reed's family attorney, Ben Crump, said that his clients have been receiving conflicting accounts and incomplete information about the circumstances of Reed's death. Crump said Colin Kaepernick will pay for an independent autopsy through his Know Your Rights Camp autopsy initiative. Says right here also that, quote, their death invoked the collective memory of a community that has suffered a historic wound over many, many years and many, many deaths. Crump said in a statement, peace will come only by getting the truth. We thank Colin Kaepernick for supporting this the grieving family and cause of justice and truth. Says right here, the Bolivar County Coroner, Randolph Seals Jr., said earlier this week that Reed did not suffer any injuries consistent with assault. Representative Bernie Thompson, a Democrat from Mississippi, called on a federal investigation, citing the state's painful history of lynching and racial violence against African Americans. Colin Kaepernick last played in the NFL, as stated, in 2016, leading the 49ers to a Super Bowl in 2012, a season before losing to Baltimore Ravens. People don't even know anything about that. I'm glad that this is happening, and I want to kind of get your thoughts on this. You know, one, why should Colin Kaepernick have to pay for an autopsy that firsthand should have depicted what we all know happened,
or have a whole organization that specifically does autopsies, so that
designated
correct information for what happens to Black individuals when instances like these occur.
Yeah. And this is another example of performative outrage, you know, or no outrage in this case, because we don't
Lack
really
of
see
outrage. Yeah, absolutely.
You know, as this isn't a neo-Nazi, and it's not surprising. It's not a neo-Nazi. It's not a white woman. It's not some oligarchical like Brian Thompson. It's none of these people. It's a black man. And I think that sucks, that we have this perpetuated, you know, goal by the state to erase, you know, black bodies and to erase even the truth about how they've been slain. So
absolutely. And this isn't the first instance of this. There was an instance of this in California a few years back. There was an instance of this in New Albany. There have been several instances of Black men being found hanging from trees. As an individual that knows the history, as someone who lives that, like, it doesn't make sense to suicide by tree. And it's extremely suspicious. And it's extremely suspicious that this has been on the rise since around the time that, for instance, Turning Point USA, Charlottesville, the rise of neo-Nazi America. And that's what we are seeing right now, is the rise of neo-Nazi America, the whitewashing of history. As I stated before, a modern march into birth of a nation type rhetoric and propaganda and hate. It's similar to post Reconstruction, you know, that the hatred of, well, now there's freedmen, but we don't want them to have too much power. It's a jealousy that we were even starting to arch toward, leaning toward equity And those in power are afraid of losing their status, of losing their privilege. There's nothing more dangerous than a mediocre white man.
Yeah, I think, one person I always rely on is Walter Rodney's Through Decolonize Marxism. He talks about in there, that a person will look at everything they garner from the exploitation of others when being told that it's exploitive, and will come up with excuses to try and keep these forms of exploitation afloat. I think we need to really understand that in the wake of not just Charlie Kirk, the dehumanization, the desensitization that is running rampant towards other things that need more attention than, say, Charlie Kirk getting assassinated. It shows for me that people are unwilling to put things down, aside, or in the trash in regards to how they show forms of solidarity. There's so many people right now that I'm disappointed with, that have not talked about Trey Reed, but have put out 5-6 videos about Charlie Kirk. We went from selective outrage to performative outrage to no outrage at all when it comes to people of color. It's
I mean,
a
we
new
were able
level
to
of
overlook a
dehumanization.
genocide for, 70% of Americans are against it. So that wall that Israel had built up and that the oligarchs had built up started to see some major cracks. And they're trying to reel that in.
Yeah,
You
and they're
start looking
using
at that, you start looking at other aspects.
yeah, and they do that. They're doing that with TPUSA. This is all part of the plan. I'm glad that one, we gave you guys a small smidge. This was just a breakdown of the dehumanization. Can wait to get into TPUSA, because that's where the bread and butter is regarding what we found. It's as much as I have a smile on my face, I'm not happy that I have to report this. I'm not happy that I have to disclose this. But people need to hear the truth, and most importantly, we need to bash the fash. So.
And there was one yes, 100%. And there was one last article that I wanted to share, and I've been thinking a lot about and what they're labeling as political violence. They're calling the shooting of Charlie Kirk, and we don't even know if it was we don't know 100% if it was politically motivated. It likely was, but we don't know. For one, probably was, but they define that as political violence. But what I think of when I think of political violence isn't a shooter going and shooting an individual. It is state sanctioned violence. It's slavery through the 13th Amendment. It's alligator Alcatraz. It's the genocide of Palestinians. It's lack of health care for the poor. It's criminalization of homelessness. Those are true acts of political violence. So it's so crazy that these people are able to overlook this insane amount of political violence that is affecting us, the regular people. AI replacing our jobs. It's a form of political violence. Not being able to find work, corporations polluting our rivers and our lakes and our air and our soil.
Not being able to afford groceries is a form of political violence, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
It's
a genocide. A genocide is what can be more explicit than a genocide being political violence? And then there's been more outrage over Charlie Kirk than a single child lost in Gaza.
Or the
from
fact
this
that
administration and most of these pundits.
Yeah, and you made a good point earlier too, Zaina, is that we had just in a matter of 2 days, in the tune of billions, people divest from Disney because Jimmy Kimmel lost his job, which rightfully so. We both have agreed. No one should what he said was not political violence. It was not invoking violence.
Being on the back end of blacklisting for the last several years, no, we shouldn't be blacklisted. There shouldn't be, the modern McCarthy era of people losing their jobs. Absolutely not.
Yeah, but we also shouldn't be advocating for millionaires the way that we've been seeing. Jimmy Kimmel was a millionaire. He's made millions off of helping and being a part of that process of distorting the truth. And that has been so in the last 2 years. When has he ever said anything about Gaza? When has he ever remotely, said anything? So the fact that we had people on both sides of this spectrum that didn't agree with violations of free speech come out and say, boycott Disney, boycott Hulu, boycott the bundle package that they have. Where was this outrage again for the people of Gaza? Where was this outrage for the people of Sudan? It was nowhere to be seen, and we see very clearly what the agenda is that when it's black bodies, when it's indigenous bodies, you are very, very clear on how you stand. You are unwilling to put down the Hulu subscription, to put down the bundle package. You're unwilling to stop buying, Folgers coffee so that you can have genocide in your cup.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's just performative outrage at its fucking finest, as that people in Gaza were tuned out of the internet. And yet people were boasting about boycotting something that we have been asking people to boycott for through the BDS movement. Mind you, I'm a part of that movement. You're a part of that movement. This is not something we've been advocating this for years, far before October 7th. So
absolutely. And I just wanted to show this article real quick as we close out, because we will be going into this much deeper in our next episode, into TPUSA, but then also into Trump's latest executive orders and how those tie to TPUSA. But Trump is now deploying National Guard. He deployed it in Los Angeles. He's deployed them in Washington, D.C., and now he's deploying the National Guard to Memphis. Experts worry it's becoming normal. President Trump has, and this was with a latest memorandum, not an executive order, but these memorandums essentially act similar as an executive order would. President Trump has set his sights on Memphis as the next city in need of federal intervention, including sending National Guard troops to combat crime. In the Oval Office earlier this week, flanked by Republican Tennessee Governor Bill Lee, Trump signed an order to set up a federal task force to send to the city in an effort he described as a replica of what he has done in Washington, D.C., where more than 2,000 National Guard troops have been stationed for more than a month. Those troops have mostly been patrolling federal property or beautifying city parks. No, they haven't. That's bullshit. See how the news whitewashes things? NPR. Are you NPR? What, are they kissing Trump's ass now because he's cutting funding to NPR and PBS? What is this line? That's not factual.
You want to know it's not factual at all, because what we have seen the money be spent on, and I'm not to cut in, comrade, but the money's been spent on military contracts. It's been spent on
I was talking about what the National Guard are doing in DC, but yeah.
It is funny. This is like it's a level of, like how you said, because they got their funding cut, now they're talking like this.
Mm-hmm. And I want to remind people, speaking of where the money's spent, government contracts, guess what's in Memphis, Tennessee? Elon Musk's Center for Grok, where right now people in Memphis are starting to organize against it because it's polluting their air and their water. It's draining their water supply and it's polluting their air. And that's his next target city. Kind of funny, isn't it? That there's an uprising starting in Memphis and now he wants to send the National Guard there.
And this is actually, like, for me, a legit question that I've been pontificating around, being a journalist myself. The aspect of 2026 coming about, elections, and him making sure that there's militarized outposts that work in his favor in some of these Democrats. Do you get that same sense that that's what he's gearing towards? That these midterms, or he's making sure that these midterms stay accordingly to what his plan is?
Potentially, but I do think that this is to soften us for nationwide.
Yeah.
Targeting, I think you're right, but also targeting more blue areas in Democratic cities where quote unquote considered blue areas, so that it can be rolled out everywhere, so that we get used to policing. Right now, think about it. ICE now has a larger budget, thanks to the big, beautiful bill, than some other countries, like some other Western countries' entire militaries.
I think
It
I
has more funding than any of our governmental departments.
mm,
And multiple government departments, like the FBI, has more funding than the CIA. It has more funding than even Customs and Border Patrol, who were supposed to be the main wing of immigration enforcement, right? Not ICE. ICE. Oh, there is one real quick thing I want to say too. ICE is brand new, guys. ICE has only been around since 2004. It's 21 years old. It's part of the Patriot Act and was only supposed to be temporary. And now it is the largest police force or the largest enforcement force in the country, period.
this is crazy. And
So if you're looking at the National Guard and then you look at ICE and you look at those two things combined, he's literally attempting to implement military forces. This is militarization, essentially. They were already doing this with our police and regular local police forces, but now this is solely navigated by the executive branch. There is no separations of powers anymore. That's completely gone.
Yeah.
This is political violence. This is political violence.
right for our very eyes. I know I align with everything that you have to say regarding this topic. And for those that are trying to figure out what are the next steps, what you should be doing, organizing, making sure your people know, your community knows that this is coming. This is already here. It already is making way. He said this yesterday, actually, that Memphis and Chicago are his next stops, and after
And he
that,
already has the memorandum out for Chicago. So there's already for Memphis, there's already a presidential memorandum that was released 2 days ago or 3 days ago.
Yeah. So, welcome to overt, in-your-face techno-authoritarian fascism, because that's exactly what we're at right now. And, we will be here to tell you guys the truth. I first off want to say this has been a blast. I have not broken down something like this before with relatively anybody else, and so I want to give props and a shout out, to Zaina for being patient with me, Mon.
Oh no, you've been patient with me as well. I got much needed. Everything kept me awake for days with all of this that's been happening, and I finally caught some shut eye. And Isaac was very patient with me as I got some much needed rest as I was healing from being sick. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I feel like I'll say this, both of us being patient with each other, I think rolled out a really beautiful inaugural episode that for both of our viewers, and I'm happy that we were able to do this together, because the desensitization, the dehumanization, all of that. I mean, we can get into personal shit, but we'll leave that for a different episode or a different day. Just know that this was a collaborated effort to tell the truth, and I'm glad that we were able to do that. And so again, thank you to Bullpen Bulletin viewers. If you liked what you heard here from me,
same with
please.
10 Media viewers, and for joining our very first episode of Bash the Fash. And if they're going to ban the term fascism, then we'll say it's short for fashion.
For fashion. For fashion.
Maybe we'll do a segment that's grilling people on their gaudy freaking outfits, the oligarch outfits.
Bash the fascist fashion. There's a lot of people that are out there that I'm pretty sure we could definitely school. And just, I mean, like the fashion police, we could put on our what is that? Joan Rivers. We could put on our Joan Rivers hat and go away. I think it's Joan Rivers.
Oh yeah.
From Fashion Police. Yeah, we could.
Yeah, she was hilarious.
Yeah, and yeah, she was very, very hilarious. I was actually like a couple days ago watching the Fashion Police. So you guys got something new from me that I watched the Fashion Police.
But just for reference, it means bash the fascist. So,
Yes, bash the fascist. Let's go. Um,
but
yeah. Do you have any opening remarks you want to give to my viewers, or last remarks you want to give to my viewers before we go? Anything new you're working on other than this new podcast you want to shout out?
I will be doing a relaunch for Bullhorn Bulletin starting at the end of this upcoming week. Very, very excited about that. I have 3 articles coming out that I'm very excited about. One about dehumanization, another about Trump's executive orders that he's been outlining, and another one about Gaza. So if you are interested, please check that out. You can follow me on Bullhorn Bulletin at Substack as well. And yeah, if you're on the YouTube channel, welcome. If you're on 10 Media's YouTube channel, thanks for joining us. And I don't have anything to add because you rounded it all up with organizing and getting out there and building community and making sure that we take care of each other, because it's coming down the pike. It's coming down the pike. And we've been talking about some future episodes of Bash the Fash. It gets into the techno broligarchy as well. I've done a few episodes on that. Yeah, do you have anything upcoming, Isaac? I know you've got some interviews this week and some other stuff for 10 Media.
So I'll be sitting down with our comrade Chuck Modi, going over a little bit of.
He's the greatest.
He's super dope. And again, for those that don't know, Chuck Modi has a show with Eton Thomas and another host of theirs, which I should have before. I'm gonna remember the name because I'm gonna shout out every single time I possibly can, comrades and whatnot on this network, on this particular podcast. Chuck Modi is someone that I highly advise people to follow, just like Eton Thomas, and they touched a little bit of what we touched about today. And they put that on their YouTube channel, The Collision. I'll be sitting down with Chuck talking about kleptocracy, going over a little bit of the Kawhi Leonard situation, getting his thoughts on Palestine, how we as sports journalists, sports admirers, sports connoisseurs, how we should be moving in the wake of genocide being put onto our screens in 4K. Another episode that I'll will be rolling out is some episodes regarding kind of comments I've been getting in yeah, just responding to some things. But yeah, I have some stuff lined up, and then also too, if you guys would like to join, I'm going to be having a workshop. It's a virtual workshop where we're going to be learning how to admire, respect, acknowledge, and write to political prisoners. Some of the likes are Imam Jamil Al-Amin, Mumia Abu-Jamal, writing in their advocacy and going through the parameters of that type of work. So that's what I got lined up, along with this newly found podcast that we created with Zay. It's in the words of Future, life's good. It's busy, but it's good.
Life's busy, but it's good. I like that.
So yeah, those are my announcements.
Please like, subscribe, share. Please sign up. I'm not monetized yet, so you can sign up to support me on Substack.
Well, while Zay clears a little bit of noise, you can support us, and at our links below. They will be put in the description to help us out. This work does not come easy, and we can use all the help that we possibly can get, whether that's a share, financial contributions, whatever that may be. As Malcolm X said, by any and every means necessary. So
They don't
that's what I
let
classify.
Isaac and I through the gates of the oligarchy. So, not that we would necessarily fit in very well there, but to be honest, you're not going to see us in the Washington Post or commentators for the Associated Press, sadly, even though we are journalists. And the reason is because we cover this type of content, the investigative work that we do. One of the articles I have coming out, for instance, is exposing political consulting firms and how that works. Speaking about one that Justice Democrats, John Fetterman, and others have made over $100 million since 2016. It's crazy. So yeah, when you expose this kinds of things and you expose the kind of corruption and cronyism that 10 Media exposes, that Bullhorn Bulletin exposes, they don't let you through the gates, and it's very hard to find work. So if you can support us, please do. And if it's as much as a watch and taking that knowledge forward, then bless you and appreciate you watching.
Yep. And
remember, bash the fash.
Fash. We're gonna get on cadence next time. We promise you guys.
We're still rusty, so thanks for joining us. Well, we're still getting used to hosting together, so thanks for joining us for our first show.
Thank you guys. We'll see you guys in the next one.